Good morning. Welcome to this morning's first Dharma School service for this semester, I guess. To begin again, our Dharma School services here at the Betsuin. It's kind of exciting to think of all of you joining once again here at the Betsuin. We're still in this very strange time where we can't gather in the Hondo, and yet we are able to come together and be in our classes remotely. I know many of you are back in school, back in your regular classes. Others of you are in classes through remote learning. But whatever the circumstances you may be in, I hope you will be able to share in the joy and the happiness that we have here, are able to be a part of here at the Betsuin. Thank you for joining us, for being here this morning. I would like to begin with the reading of Sambujo and Juseige.
Good morning, everyone. So please join me in reading Golden Chain together. Okay. Golden Chain. I am a link in the Mida's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I will keep my link bright and strong. I will be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words, and do pure and beautiful deeds. May every link in Amida's golden chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much. Okay. So again, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Dharma School morning service. How was your summer vacation? I hope you had a good time with your friends and family. Although we are not able to gather here in Hondo, I'm still so happy to be able to share time with you again this morning. So I have a question. So what kind of greeting do you use every day? So when you see your friends and teacher, not only in person, but also virtual classes, do you say, hi, good morning? Or when class is over, do you say, thank you, or bye to them? In Japanese, when I see someone in the morning, I say, ohayo to them. Okay. Nowadays, when you take your classes, you might attend classes and meet your friends virtually. Same here. When we have meeting, we meet and discuss virtually. This feels like we take classes alone in a place. But even though we cannot see each other in person and separate from each other due to this pandemic, like Rinban Sakamoto said before, it doesn't mean we are not isolated, but we are still connected. We can attend the classes without showing our face to each other, but communication starting with our greeting is always important to welcome one another and appreciating others, saying hi, good morning, and thank you. In Japanese, greetings saying hi, hello, thank you, bye, when you see people or say bye to them is called aisatsu. Aisatsu, okay? Aisatsu is made of two characters, push and close together. Push and close together. Aisatsu or greeting originally comes from Buddhist tradition. In Zen Buddhism, there's a practice where monks would often exchange questions and answers when they met someone new to understand them better. And they did push and open answers to grow closer together. Today, individuals do not look at aisatsu with such formality, but the principle of the practice still remains today. It's about growing closer with one another. So when you see your friends, teachers, and your family, why don't you try to say hi, hello, thank you, bye for new to them, that they're welcome and to express your appreciation. Also, when you attend the service and place your palms together in Gassho and say Namo Amida Butsu can be considered as aisatsu, greeting to Buddha. Also, it's a greeting from Buddha too as well. If you have a family altar or Butsudan in your place, or even if you don't have it, not only while attend the service, but also during our lives, we can do aisatsu with Buddha. Buddha's answer to us is always the same. Namo Amida Butsu. Don't worry, I'll be with you. Just be yourself. When you put your palms together and say Namo Amida Butsu, you're telling Buddha, thank you always for staying by my side. This is Buddhist way of aisatsu to Buddha. Namo Amida Butsu and aisatsu are always the key to open up ourselves. How will this work on you? Let's close the talk with aisatsu. Say Namo Amida Butsu. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you. Welcome back.
Again, good morning. Good to see all of you here, well, not see all of you here, but that you could join us for this first Dharma School service of this new year. As again, we are in this very challenging time, but we're able to connect with one another through our activities. And again, some of you may be back in school, in person classes. Others of you may be continuing with classes remotely. And some of you may have gone to class, but the classes were closed again because of an outbreak in COVID in your school. And so there are a lot of things that are going on. There's great uncertainty around us. All of us are going through this kind of uncertain time, very challenging time. But I think if we simply remember that, people that we are close to, whatever is happening to them, that we are close to them, that we are a part of their lives, as well as their lives are a part of our lives. That we can, if we are mindful, if we think about how deeply connected we are with the lives around us, it really doesn't matter whether we are able to see them physically or not. We'd like to be able to do things, more things together, and so we take, we go out and we do things that maybe we shouldn't be really doing because it's so important to us to be able to see each other face to face. It's a real powerful part of our being human, to be in contact to physically be in contact with those people who are close to us. So it's a real challenging time for us to be able to not be in contact, and yet at the same time to recognize and appreciate how deeply connected we are to one another. In a way, it's a good Buddhist challenge for all of us to be mindful of the fact that even if we are not in contact, even if we aren't able to see each other, we can still appreciate one another. We can still recognize how much the lives of others are a part of our lives. To the point that perhaps we might recognize that there is no other, right? That we are all one people. There is no other that we have to kind of think of bringing into our lives. There is no other that we push away from our lives. But that all beings are a part of the life that we are immersed in. When we think about Amida Buddha is infinite wisdom, infinite compassion. It's kind of hard to think about things that are infinite. It goes on and on and on and on and on and does not stop. It does not end anywhere. But that's how connected we are to the life around us. That image or that idea of infinite wisdom, infinite compassion. Infinite wisdom is infinite light. Infinite compassion is infinite life. Life that extends and embraces all beings. Amida Buddha affirms and assures all beings, everyone is included. There's no other in Amida Buddha's compassion. And so we should think in those terms, in the same way that Amida Buddha, as best as we can, think like Amida Buddha. That there is no other. There is only us. There is only each of us in our relationship to the people around us. And that extends infinitely to include all people. Whether you are in class in person or back into virtual learning, wherever you are in your studies or meeting with friends and family, the face that you see on that screen is not just those are pixels on a screen, but it represents a life that you are connected to, that you are interacting with, that you have a relationship with. I hope when you see your teachers, whether in person or virtually, that you will thank them. You say, thank you, I appreciate what you're doing. For those teachers who have to go back to classrooms in person, some teachers have classrooms with 30-something students. It was crowded before the pandemic, and it is even more crowded now, even the same number, but even more crowded now because of the concern that we have for the transmission of COVID. But they're there, helping us learn, sharing with us their appreciation of what they do for each of us. So when you see a teacher, whether in your regular school or in Dharma school, please tell them thank you. And really remember how much they do for us, so that when you say thank you, it comes from your full being, expressing that appreciation. Thank you, for all of the work that you do. To the teachers, thank you for, again, organizing and preparing for and spending time with the students here at the Betsuin. And to the students, thank you for being a part of our Dharma school and sharing your enthusiasm and your experiences, your thoughts about the teachings of the Buddha. It doesn't matter how old or how young or how many years you spent as a Dharma school student. You are a human being, just like the rest of us. You are a human being, like all of us are together. And your ideas, your thoughts, what you share is important. Again, thank you for your presence here on this first day back to Dharma school. As we conclude, will you please join in Gassho and Nembutsu? Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, everyone. Next week is Coast District's joint Ohigan service. So please go to our YouTube site where the Coast District Ohigan service will be presented. That'll begin at 10 o'clock next week, September the 19th. So please plan to join us for that. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
Japanese people live in Japan.
morning. Welcome to this morning service. It's different, but yet it's the same. We are here again, attending our services through Zoom. But we are, as we continue to participate remotely, there's still opportunity to share, to be a part of what we do here at the Betsuin. I know often the chat room, well, not the room, but the chat on the side of the YouTube broadcast, there's always some conversation going on. I don't get to read it afterwards because we don't save that chat conversation. But even as you're watching this remotely, you're interacting with each other, sharing ideas, sharing thoughts, sharing jokes. So some things that I might say might be kind of funny, but you might, well, not intended to be funny, but you might comment on it and say, oh, that was a little weird. But the interaction is still possible. In a way, we've become so used to this way of communicating with one another that perhaps we've become settled enough in this that we are able to affirm the importance of what we share with one another, to be able to laugh and to cry together, even though we are remotely separated. The connection that we share is real. The connection that we share is vibrant, is important. We'll begin today's service. We'll start with Sambujo, followed by the reading of Juseige. Juseige is something that we read all the time. It's from the larger Pure Land Sutra. And there is that line, of course, that we all know of, that reads Isshu Kai Hozo, about 2/3 of the way through Juseige. When Hirano Sensei was here many, many years ago, I asked him, because I had no idea where this phrase Kai Hozo came from. And Kai Hozo is on this plaque that's above our onaijin. We come and we see this all the time. But Kai Hozo, Hirano Sensei said right away, immediately, he said, oh, it comes from the Juseige. And of course, we read Juseige all the time, and it was pointed out to me by him that this phrase comes from Juseige. And in that line, Dharmakara reaffirms this idea of making possible the enlightenment of all beings, everyone. Isshu, for the sake of all beings, not just those who do the right thing, not for those who are somehow acknowledged. It is for all beings that Dharmakara sets out on this quest to provide a means to which all beings might resolve the difficulties that we experience. That Kai Ho Zo, open up the Dharma storehouse, Isshu, for the sake of all beings. We'll read this Juseige. Again, it's the Bodhisattva Dharmakara. It comes from a larger Pure Land Sutra. It is the Bodhisattva Dharmakara. Before his teacher, the Buddha Lokeshvara Raja, reaffirming his intent to make possible the enlightenment of all beings, to provide a means to which everyone, regardless of who we are, what we are able to do, or what we may or may not have done in our lives, that all beings are included in the vow of Amida Buddha. We'll begin then the reading of Sambujo, followed again by the reading of Juseige. you would please join now in the reading of the Three Treasures. If you have this Shin Buddhist service book, it's on page 8. Hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we hear it. If we do not realize the truth in this life, when will it be realized? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we absorb ourselves in the principle of the way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves the supreme will. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we be submerged in the depths of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we live in harmony in the great assembly as disciples of Buddha and be freed from all hindrances, becoming units of true accord in the life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through ages of myriads of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Again, good morning. Thank you for joining us for this morning's service. Before I want to thank our crew that makes this broadcast possible. Earlier in the pandemic, we wanted to restrict the number of people who were in one place at one time, and so Mikame Sensei and I took care of all of the Zoom and the live streaming. Although a lot of the preparation was done by Mas Nishimura and Kevin Kitagawa and others who, Matt, I'm sorry, Matt. Fukuchi, thank you. Oh gosh, my brain just froze. but these individuals and others, and now they are joined by people who will be able to assist us, help us make this broadcast possible. Joining Kevin and Mas and Matt, we have board members who are coming in to learn how to do this. Paul Endo is here this morning, and we have also Brandon joining us for this morning's training session. Kevin was saying earlier that before he needs to give Brandon information, Brandon is already doing things. So I think it's going from a very kind of ignorant, unknown staff to very knowledgeable and very quick. And we should be able to provide a morning service presentation that'll be more consistent, less crisis. Although we did have a crisis this morning when we tried to log into our Zoom account, couldn't remember the password. So we tried several passwords, and we were locked out of our account. So we had to reset the password. It turned out it wasn't quite as a crisis as at least I was imagining. I thought, oh no, what are we going to do? But we just reset the password. Now the challenge would be to remember, or at least to write down what that password is. So the next time we have less of a crisis as we prepare to present the services through YouTube. But it's been such a challenge all these past so many months now. We never really thought about this pandemic lasting this long, and here we are, nearly a year and a half, more than a year and a half now, into this pandemic. But we're finding ways to adjust. We're finding ways to continue to do many of the things that we were able to do before. There are some things, of course, we cannot do that you would like to do. Among them, gather together as friends and family. I miss the open door cafe where people used to gather out on the sidewalk and enjoy a cup of coffee and talk story for a while before coming into the Hondo for our services. And to see all of our students coming into the Hondo and then rushing out of the Hondo to go to class, to hear their voices, to hear their greeting one another and enjoying the Sunday morning here at the Hondo. Those are the kinds of things that I look forward to being able to do again. But again, we have found ways to continue to maintain that connection, that relationship that we share with one another through our technology. We're able to hold meetings, we're able to hold classes, we're able to visit places that perhaps we were unable to visit before. When we conduct services, usually the services here, the memorial services, funeral services, are somewhat of at first they were all virtual services, but we began to conduct hybrid services here in the Hondo. For the services that we conduct, we're limiting to 100 people, and that indoors everyone wears masks. And the reason we use the 100 number, our capacity in the Hondo is about 200, so we take 50% of that, and that's a number of people that we allow in the Hondo at any one time. And there's protocols that we follow coming in to the Hondo, filling out a tracking sheet, and using hand sanitizers. And then after the service, fogging the Hondo so that it will be safe for the next group that comes in. But now we have these hybrid services that allows family members who would, under normal circumstances, be unable to attend. They may be halfway across the world and would not have been able to attend a service, but because of these virtual services, we are able to include them. They are able to participate in these services. And it's nice. Usually after the service is concluded, we'll leave the Zoom on and close up what we're doing here in the Hondo, and they're able to chat for a while, talk with friends and family that they perhaps had not seen for a long time. And it's really nice because they usually stay online after the service for maybe a half an hour, 20 minutes, a half an hour, sharing news and catching up with what's happening in each other's lives. We've discovered ways to remain connected, ways that we were perhaps unfamiliar with a year and a half ago, but now kind of take for granted that we are able to use this technology to be connected, to share our lives with one another. I wonder sometimes, oftentimes when families come for memorial service, when memorial service, they bring a homyo, so the homyo of the person whose service we're conducting. And the homyo, we present at the time of the person's death. And in order to protect that homyo, often the homyo and its envelope is in a Ziploc bag. And if it's in a Ziploc bag, then if it gets put down on a wet surface, or there's less chance of something happening to the homyo. So it's a way of protecting that homyo, and it's an expression of how important that homyo is. That it's not something that we should kind of just toss around, but that we should be careful with how we think about and how this homyo is taken care of when we leave and when we come to the hondo. Usually the homyo, it's not necessary. Well, it's usually kept in a drawer in the home obutsudan, or at a safe place at home. It's not necessary to have it displayed all the time. But that homyo and the envelope that it's in, people will often bring it to the temple in a Ziploc bag. And whenever I see that it's in a Ziploc bag, I think if Shakyamuni Buddha had Ziploc bags, a lot of the things that he shared, well, not Shakyamuni Buddha, but the disciples of Shakyamuni Buddha, they would store that Ziploc bag, that sutra in a Ziploc bag, and we would have material from 2,500 years ago. We're able to take a look at what that was about. Or if Shinnan's writings, well-preserved Eshinni's letters, they were discovered in this warehouse, Honganji warehouse. About 21 of these letters that were discovered. Well, not even that many. It was discovered in this warehouse at the turn of the last century that kind of squarely determined that there was someone known as Shinnan who lived in the 12th century, that the work of Shinnan that we had known up until the time of the discovery of Shinni's letters, there was some controversy about whether or not that person was actually someone. But even those works, if they had been kept in Ziploc bags, they would have been preserved perhaps, and we would be able to see a more clear picture, or maybe more confusing with more information, more confusing picture of what Shinnan's life was like and who this person may have been. The information that we receive, that we get passed down, the teachings of the Buddha, regardless of how well preserved, regardless of whether this is simply transmitted from generation to generation through memory, or whether they're preserved in a Ziploc bag, the content of that information is what is important. The content of that information is, of course, at its core, Four Noble Truths. And we often, and I see this in literature as well, that often when referring to this, they say Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path, as if these were two separate things. And they're not just in our, kind of everyday material, but these are in literature that, for instance, like Tricycle magazine will often occasionally have articles written that refer to Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path. And we know, of course, that the Eightfold Path is the fourth of the Four Noble Truths. So if we were to say and Eightfold Path, we have to say Three Noble Truths and Eightfold Path. And that wouldn't make any sense at all. It's the Four Noble Truths. And the Eightfold Path is the fourth of the Four Noble Truths. Somewhere along the line, we kind of separated that out. And I think that's a real misfortune that we did that. Because we have to think of this as one thing, the Four Noble Truths, as one thing. It's not these two pieces that we put together. Because that last of the Four Noble Truths is a means through which we cultivate the mind that sees things as they are. So if you go backwards through this Four Noble Truths, it's the means to do what? To cultivate the mind that sees things as they are, that does what? Resolves the difficulties that are expressed in the first of the Four Noble Truths. When we disconnect these things, then Jodo Shinshu kind of gets set aside. Because Jodo Shinshu says, I recognize my inability to cultivate the mind that sees things as they are. I recognize my inability to follow the Eightfold Path. It can be used certainly as guidelines, but the intent of the Eightfold Path is to cultivate the mind that sees things as they are. And when I recognize that I am unable to do that, I also am able to deepen my appreciation of the assurance of Amida Buddha that provides for the enlightenment of all beings. With these two, right, the inability and the assurance, we're able to live our lives with a sense of gratitude and appreciation. With understanding that all beings, again, Ishu Kai Hozo, that all beings are included or within the work of Dharmakara. That the intent was not to focus on one group of people and not another, to exclude somehow somebody and to include someone else. There is no other in Buddhism. There is no us and them. That is created from our inability to see things as they are. We create the separation. We create the divisions from which difficulties arise. The first of the Four Noble Truths. There is no other. We create that illusion. There are so many so many challenges that we find ourselves in this time. I mean, it seems like everything is so chaotic. Nothing seems to be resolvable. And maybe it will take a very long time for us to get to the point where we recognize that we cannot address these difficulties as long as we think of the other as separate from ourselves. There was a broadcast on NPR the other day, and a woman was sharing her experience growing up post 9/11. And it was a kind of a calabash uncle. Calabash is like you're not your real uncle, but a family friend who's very much a part of the family, so much so that they're thought of as an uncle, who was the first victim of a hate crime following 9/11. And for, it's been 20 years. And she grew up to become an attorney. And she is an advocate for racial justice, for equality. And she decided that she would, find out more about her uncle. And one of the things that she did was to go back to visit with his widow. And they sat and cried together. She had a slew of questions to ask, but set those aside and just to be with the widow. And in the end, she asked, what would you tell America? You know, here was a person whose husband was killed 4 days after the 9/11 attack. And he was killed while he was tending a flower, while planning to plant flowers on the corner of the gas station that he ran. And he was shot 5 times and killed. Because he was thought to be Muslim, when in fact he was Sikh. His death is no less important or no more important because he was mistaken for being something other than what he was. Again, the ignorance, our foolishness as we act in the world, not seeing things as they are, doesn't make it better that if that person had been Muslim and killed. But the widow said, when asked, what would you say to America? And she said, please tell them thank you. Because when the funeral service for her husband was held, or memorial was held, thousands of people came. Not just from the Sikh community, not just Muslims, not just Asians, not just groups of people that we would identify as not like ourselves, but everybody came together. And I think when we can acknowledge that we are just one, that this world in which we live, however we might see the divisions that separate, that we are simply one. There's no other. It is an illusion that we create. In the Shoshinge, there is a line that I have repeated many times. But a person of Shinjin realizes that birth and death is birth and death is nirvana. There's no separation between nirvana and samsara. It's our view of the world that causes us to feel and experience nirvana as samsara. The Eightfold Path is to cultivate the mind that sees things as they are. But as Jodo Shinshu, as we realize how impossible it is to cultivate that mind, to be free of my own prejudices. But as I acknowledge those prejudices, I move through the world differently. And as I recognize the importance of the assurance of Amida Buddha, I'm grateful. For that assurance that provides for the enlightenment of even me, a person like myself. Today, as we join together for this morning's first adult service, it's kind of unlike the last week's service. Did we have service last week? No, we took a break the week before that. And it's not unlike any other services that we'll be observing well into the weeks and months and hopefully years to come. But what draws us together is the teachings of the Buddha that is at its core the Four Noble Truths. That begins with a question of how do we resolve these difficulties? And if we respond to the difficulties and that response is to separate, then there will be no resolution. If the response is to see the other as other, then there will be no resolution of difficulties. We need to begin to recognize that there is no other. This reporter that went back, or attorney reporter that went back to visit with the widow, it changed her when she heard this widow's reply. That we cannot continue to respond to the difficulties in our lives through more separation. And that as cheesy as it might sound, we can only respond with compassion, with love. It is the Dhammapada that came hundreds of years ago. Hatred is not overcome by hatred. Hatred is overcome by compassion, by kindness, by love. It is only when we can begin to see ourselves everywhere that there is no separation, that the separation that we see is simply my own preferences, my own prejudices being expressed. That when we can begin to resolve those differences, we can begin to resolve the difficulties that we cause and experience. It is not an easy path, nor is love a soft and mushy thing. There is power and strength in the willingness to reach out and acknowledge someone different as ourselves, to be able to affirm all beings as ourselves. The Nembutsu, Namamidabutsu, is in Jodo Shinshu an expression of gratitude and appreciation. It is gratitude for the assurance of Amida Buddha that provides for the enlightenment of all beings. Not just myself, not just me, not just those who I care about, but all beings. Even the person most remotely we can think of, that person too is included. Even if that person has no idea what Jodo Shinshu is about, is completely diametrically opposed to what Jodo Shinshu is about, even that person is contained within the assurance of Amida Buddha. There is no other. We can begin to maybe resolve our difficulties as we begin to recognize how my views of the world results in difficulties for myself. Again, thank you for your presence here today. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Next week is the Coast District Joint Ohigan Service. It'll be live streamed on YouTube, so you just need to go to our normal YouTube channel and you'll be able to participate in that. Our speaker for that joint service will be Reverend Koe Umezu. She is a minister of the, assistant minister at the West Los Angeles Buddhist Temple. And she will join us virtually and be our speaker for the Dharma School service, or the Dharma School message and the adult message, and our speaker, keynote speaker for the seminar that will follow the service. So please do plan to come and join us for that service. Thank you very much again for your kind attention. As we conclude, will you please join in Gassho and Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. Thank you very much, everyone. See you next time.